I told Prates Saturday, I said, hey, man, tell me where your after party is so that I know I'm at least a mile away so I don't get caught in all that you guys are going to be doing. Because
to know where not to be, right?
I know where not to be in New York City.
What's happening, guys? I'm Chael. He's Daniel. Welcome to another episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy. Partner, we just got back from MSG, and there's no feel quite like the hangover of a fight week.
Especially there. All right, Chael. I don't like to really say anything, but guys, if you did not watch last week's show, Chael and I have just gotten into our rhythm. I mean, we have gotten it right. It's right, Chael. That was by far the best show we've ever done. It flowed really well. It was a good show. And it's good when you get up and you go, man, it works. Right? And that was one of the best shows. Go watch it because Chael and I talked about the fights obviously coming up. We also did our Monday's headlines, which guess what? Both ended up being true after as we look back on last weekend. But if you haven't watched last week's show, guys, go watch it. It was like one of our best ones. And Chael, obviously, you and I always do good work when we're in person. But Madison Square Garden once again delivers. The energy around the New York fight card, Chael, is unreal, dude. It's just something special about that city and about that arena.
On all sides, partner, not just for the fans and for the pundits, but for the athletes themselves. And I cannot help but wonder, in hindsight, was it too much for Jack? I mean, was it simply too much for Jack? I don't have any problem with somebody getting beat, Daniel, and I would never kick a man when he's down. My critique of Jack is, in fact, possibly a compliment of Jack, which is I've seen better Jacks. I've seen better versions. I've seen a gentleman who it looks so hard to take down. He was almost the counter wrestling to what George St. Pierre was to offensive wrestling. We were watching Jack and going, this guy must have worked out with the top guys. He must have spent some time with the Australian Olympians, things like this. The wrestling wasn't on point, and there was a grimace on Jack's face. There was a grimace that said, I'm hurt. And there was something about me, and it wasn't the fighter or even the human being. It was the father in me. As a father, I wanted to go and I wanted to help him. I wanted to say, young man, are you okay? Do we need to get you something, young man? He had a look of actual pain on his face.
Chael, I got to be honest, and I kind of felt bad for him when I was watching. Like, I felt like sad for him because he looked hurt and he just really looked like dejected and like kind of broken. And that's hard for a person to watch inside of an octagon. We'll get to that more. But ultimately, Islam Makhachev is the story. We talked about our Monday's headline, right? And yours was that Ilya and Islam would be the story, win or lose. And guess who right away after the fight chimes in? Ilya Topuria, and speaks of how boring Islam is, how much time Jack needs to spend in Georgia, all these other things. And right away, when they send me the rundown, I go, nope, move this to the top because we want to talk about Islam and Ilya because it just feels like that's the fight. It feels like those two guys are on a collision course, and I don't know that that anyone else makes for a more interesting fight or story or conversation than these two fighters.
Well, and the one person that needs to really see what you and I are talking about, he needs to watch it right now, and he needs to get out to his channels, on his social media, on his friends, grab his Rolodex and start texting the bosses on the second floor at the UFC, is Kamaru Usman. I don't think Kamaru Usman... Kamaru came through on Saturday. I mean, when Morales went and put Brady down, Kamaru Usman is the one that won that battle. And I do think that Kamaru versus Islam, I mean, Kamaru's not a guy that anybody just takes down and keeps there. Like, there's something about that really is fascinating. The other side of the coin. Kamaru's a little older than the guys they look for, and he's been given the opportunity. UFC likes parity, and they like to offer new opportunities. So Kamaru is going to have to fight just a little bit. He's going to have to dig in just a little bit. Good news for Kamaru is Islam will help him. They have the same manager in Ali. They kind of see the same goals. They're not afraid to use the brotherhood and rise each other up. I think Kamaru's in a good spot. Not good enough, I'm predicting for you, he gets it, but good enough to be part of today's dialogue.
Yeah, he's part of the conversation. I thought he was the biggest winner because the way that Prates won, the way that Morales won, it makes those guys like valid. But then Ian Gary still just beat Carlos Prates a few months ago. right? He fights this week. Say he beats Bilal Muhammad. There are so many interesting prospects at welterweight, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Islam Makhachev, what he did on Saturday night, Chael, it was unreal to witness. I found myself watching him at 170 and wondering, how did the lightweights handle this? He was up 20 pounds, essentially. 15 pounds, 15 pounds, different weight class, with a guy that was supposed to be naturally bigger. And not only did he take him down, dude, I don't think Jack got up one time when he was taken down. And Jack Della Maddalena is known for his scramble ability. And I got to tell you, Jack was well prepared. Those guys give Craig Jones a lot of flack because they mess with him, because everybody's like, well, Craig Jones is teaching him, and they're like, well, Craig Jones can't fight for him, right? He was well prepared. You know, Islam has that nice little choke that he does every time. Every time he went to get that, he was ready to defend it. He didn't really come close to getting that choke on Jack. Jack was prepared, but it was a complete wipeout. When they walked to the center of the octagon, at the end of that fight, it was only a matter of them giving the belt to Islam. There was no question about how the fight had played out. And 50-45 across the board, Chael, we got some horrible judges. We see it constantly. They all got it exactly the same. So what we watched was like clearly, visibly, everybody was in tune. We watched one guy just dominate a fight for 25 minutes. It felt like Hamzat and Drake is Duplessis.
Yeah, no, it really was as simple as that. And I'm a little critical towards that as well. Like I felt as though, Daniel, there was a bit of a gaming of the system. Now, the system does say that if you can get to an advanced position on the ground, such as half guard, or more specifically side control, that you're going to be left alone to work from there. And I just think we might want to really take a look at what happened Saturday, not just in the main event, but also with our co-main. It was the same position, and it was the same position on rinse and repeat. And as a viewer, that is not what we've been spoiled to, and it's not what we've been treated to. Give you a recent example.
Were you bored?
Recent example was the double eye poke that happened with Tom Aspinall. And Herb Dean came out as a member of the reffing community and said, hold on. I just spoke to the Associated Boxing Commissions, and we're going to start calling eye pokes very aggressively. I felt as though perhaps we might want to start a conversation about this side control business, because the rule actually says that you must be advancing positions towards a finish. We've all decided that a full mount or a half guard or side control is a finished product, but in reality, Daniel, it's not. And this might be something we want to look at sooner rather than later.
But my thing to you was, Islam was throwing punches. He was landing. He was trying to actively chase that submission. And that, to Jack's credit, was one of the things he did very, very well, and that's defend that particular position where he tries to go to that Darce choke. I don't know, right, where people say that grappling's boring. Obviously, I made that a big part of my game. You made it a big part of your game. For the people that say that what they saw last week is boring, I think that, to his credit, Islam Makhachev, for what he was able to do, and I'm talking stymie his opponent. He could not move. He never got up. That's harder. Whereas when we watch the great Merab Dvalishvili, at times the guy gets back up, Merab throws him back down. That seems a little bit more exciting. But in reality, Merab is allowing you to get up and down purposely because he wants to throw you back to the ground. Merab likes to let you get up to make you burn that extra cardio and effort to put you back down. I believe, and again, Chael, the smothering pressure of Islam is obviously as effective, but it's as effective in breaking an opponent's mind as the up and down that we see people do against Merab. Hence, the look on Jack Della Maddalena's face. Because the one thing we never think, Chael, is that another man can throw us to the ground and keep us there. Maybe you take me down, but I'm going to get up. We've been doing it since we were little boys in our life, Chael. We know how to get up. Not when you fight Makhachev. So I don't think that was boring, Chael. I think that he continued to try in advance, and he continued to land some damage and try to submit. But I think to do that he had 21 minutes of control time. That is insane to do. To have the muscle endurance to ride someone that much. Chael, you would get a riding point. You get a minute and 10 seconds riding time. And what would you do immediately? Let him go.
Yep.
I don't want to put the effort to ride him anymore because my arms start to blow up. How about doing that for 21 minutes?
Well, and Daniel, how about him doing that? I mean, if we're going to praise compliments to this position, let's make sure we don't forget to a bigger man.
Yes.
Let's make sure we understand what he did it to. And that was the one thing. You and I have never really fallen into this. Size is going to make a big difference. But we do know that in a punching exchange, the lighter guy's got an advantage. And in a grappling exchange, the heavier guy has an advantage. In this case, we had the smaller guy do 21 minutes of wrestling, which in his last contest was only 13 minutes. So Islam actually wrestled a bigger guy 38% more. And I do think that's amazing because when I was watching this fight through the scope and lens of who potentially is next, the number one guy I kept coming back to was Kamaru Usman.
Yeah,
and it was just because of Kamaru's ability to stop that position. I personally believe that Islam's got a whole nother side to him. I believe if somebody stops his grappling, we're going to find out how good his kickboxing is. But I still do fall back to I think that Kamaru might be the right guy to exploit all of that.
Yeah. So we also watched Kamaru Usman fight Khamzat Chimaev, get taken down early, but then in round 2, 3, 4, or round 2 and 3, when Khamzat was a little bit more fatigued, he couldn't take Kamaru down. So he was forced to stand with him. And I think that is what makes Usman dangerous in a fight potentially with Islam Makhachev. But I also think that Islam does, because you have to respect everything. Now, what do I mean? Gleison Tibau, he knocked out with a left hand. He kicked Alexander Volkanovski in the head and knocked him out the second time. Because you have to respect his striking, and you know you have to respect his wrestling grappling, you have to respect his cardio, it's hard to have to respect everything from someone. When you're fighting, Chael, a guy like Anthony Rumble Johnson, when I would fight him, rest in peace, I had to respect his power, but I didn't necessarily have to respect the cardio or the wrestling because I knew I held advantages there. There is no area in Islam's game that you don't have to give the utmost respect to because you have seen him use every facet of his mixed martial arts game to end fights, submissions, takedowns, knockouts. He's done it all. So because you have to respect everything, when he would paw the jab at Jack, what do your hands have to do? Come up. When they come up, level change to the hips. When he reaches at your leg, what do your hands have to do? Go down. When the hands go down, he throws the punches at your head. Oh, you're a boxer, so you got a split stance. What does he do? Kick the leg, beat up the front leg.
Those were good kicks, by the way.
Bro, he tore him up with the leg kicks. It's like you have to respect every part of the game. And that makes it difficult because I don't know if there are many people in the UFC where you have to respect everything that you have coming in your direction. Now, name someone. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Watching Islam there against Jack Della Maddalena, give me a fighter at welterweight that you would say he's going to win.
Where he's going to win, I think, competitive-wise, I am going to have to go back to Kamaru Usman again. But I would like to touch on something you just said. Because Sugar Sean O'Malley just referred to Merab. Now, I'm putting Merab in the shoes of Islam, but it's the same analysis that you just gave. Who's going to be able to keep up with this guy? Who's going to be able to wrestle this guy? Sean O'Malley said, if I get a rematch, talking about himself, if I get a rematch with Merab, I'm not going to try to win a 25-minute decision. That's what I've tried to do twice. Yep. I'm going to concede his aggressiveness. I'm going to concede his wrestling and output. I'm going to try to knock him out. And I know that a lot of times we go into a fight and we'll say, well, the only way he could win is to knock him out. But a lot of times that is what we see. And when you're asking me for Islam, I'm going to also see Morales. What Morales did to Sean Brady. I'm not convinced that if that fight went all night long, Brady wasn't going to get the tide back. It was a situation where Morales looked for the finish and he found it. So you ask me who can go with Islam? Somebody that is aware I'm going to have to put this man down to beat him. The judges aren't going to help me. I'm going to have to put him to sleep. Somebody like Morales might be somebody that I should consider.
That's what it's going to take. You're going to have to shut his lights out. Just like he lost, right? He lost Adriano Martins. Martins hit him and dropped him and knocked him out. It's over 25 minutes. It's hard. Dude, Merab, you have two options against Merab Dvalishvili. You got to sprint 15 minutes to try to get ahead of him 3 rounds and survive, or you got to knock him out. Because you're not going to beat Merab. If you go 2-1 over Merab in a 5-round fight, going into the 4th, you're essentially done. because he's going to keep coming and he's going to get you. He just is too good down the stretch. I think for these guys, they've got to put Makhachev out. Yes, Morales is the type of guy that could end his night. You know who else? Ian Gary, with his ability to move around, his length, his striking could potentially be an issue. Shavkat Rakhmonov is the guy that I think about, and I go, man, that is a crazy fight to think about. Islam versus Rakhmonov. The size of Rakhmonov, the wrestling ability of Rakhmonov, and the striking of Rakhmonov is one of those fights where I'm like, man, boy, that's a good one. I thought last weekend would have been the toughest fight of his career. He clearly proved that that wasn't the case. I think, though, if he was to fight Shavkat, that would easily be the hardest fight of his career. You know, the next one asked me, Chael, does Islam replace Khabib on the Mount Rushmore? And for me, no. I'm sorry, Chael. That's just, I love what Islam is doing. Man, when you don't lose. We talked about this. Me and Islam talked about this last week. And we were talking about how great Khabib is, right? Islam and I were talking about how great he is. And I was like, hey, think about this. You lost. He's like, well, I don't want to think about that right now. I go, but to not make a mistake in 29 times to the octagon, that's crazy. We've seen George St. Pierre got beat by Matt Serra. And then you saw what happened in the rematch when George St. Pierre went and just really showed that he was a class above. But on that night, Matt Serra was able to beat him because he made a mistake. To not make a mistake with 29 walks, I don't think I'm ever going to take Khabib off of my Mount Rushmore fighters.
I most certainly not, but I will acknowledge that Islam, for the first time, has done something distinguishably different than Khabib. I do think that Islam gets a big pat on the back for going up to 170. Please.
Let me ask you this, Chael.
Please.
Yes, he even though he did that away from Khabib, and it's actually something Khabib didn't do, and honestly, he defended that belt more than Khabib already at 155. Chael. Is the shadow so big, though, that regardless of what Islam does, everybody's always going to have this idea that Khabib is the big brother, partially because Islam always defers to him, as he always will?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And by the way, I like that. I find that very honorable. It would break my heart in some ways if Islam was to try to come out of that shadow. David Taylor hasn't done that yet to Cael Sanderson, but it's about to happen. I can feel it. It disappoints me. It's okay to have people you look up to. It's okay to have a big brother that's always been there for you. You know, Khabib didn't just walk away from this sport. He walked away saying, I've already got my heir apparent. I'm not leaving. I'm going to fight through this guy. And nobody really knew about Islam. Islam was ranked number 9 at the time, but nobody really knew him. He wasn't on pay-per-views. He didn't headline any cards. He'd been on some free TV stuff. I'm just sharing for you. Khabib put the full belief behind him, and it turned out Khabib was right. But the fact that Islam can see that and appreciate it, Daniel, that's a beautiful thing. This is not a shadow he needs to come out of. Leave it to guys like you and I to talk about he's the 70-pound champion and to talk about the greatness. Don't do it yourself, please. Truly, it would hurt me if he did.
Chael, that's why when everybody talks about, oh, you did this, your career is better. Cain Velasquez. And I will never in my life talk about the greatness that I had and use Cain Velasquez or approach it as a competition, because without him, there is no career. It really is that simple. And that's the same thing for Makhachev, right? He knows that shadow's huge, man. The great Abdul Manap Nurmagomedov spent a lifetime building those two guys to do exactly what they are doing right now in the world, and that's really dominate all the mixed martial arts. So yes, Islam is now starting to climb into the GOAT conversation, but I think that by choice, he would never want to even be put in front of Khabib in anything, or even right next to Khabib in anything. But in terms of greatest of all time conversation, Islam is starting to enter that. Chael, he has now won 16 straight fights in the UFC. This dude tied Anderson Silva. There are certain records that you never think will be touched. John Jones fought like 15 straight title fights. Like nobody else is going to get to 15 title fights. For him to tie that record of 16 straight, like with Anderson, that's absurd.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I see it the same way. I just think that it's a really fun time to be around the sport. I think it's a fun time. And Daniel, what I do maintain is the scariest and most exciting thing about this all is as good as we've seen Islam be, I truly don't think he's shown us everything. He hasn't had to. He hasn't had to show us what he can do on his back. He hasn't had to show us what he does if he gets pushed up against the fence, if his eye is bleeding 15 minutes in. There's a lot of adversity that he's avoided by being so dominant, but that's a game. That game will catch up to you, and then it's those moments that we'll really find out just how tough our champion is.
This game always comes to get you unless you get out before it does, right? The game gets everybody. Chael, the co-main event, I said that my Monday headline would be that the winner would be considered the greatest female fighter of all time. We just watched the greatest female fighter of all time is what I said I thought the conversation would be. I was talking to Joe and John on the broadcast, and I posed the question, is it unfair that we aren't talking about Valentina in even a higher regard in terms of being the greatest of all time? Granted, she has not won 2 belts. I get that. I believe that her time to do that has passed. To go up and fight Kayla Harrison would not be ideal. Kayla's too big. But she has done everything else. And I feel now, even now, after watching last weekend in the dominance, that I'm ready to have the conversation, Joe. I told you on Thursday, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, our generation, Michael Jordan will always be the greatest basketball player of all time because that's exactly who we saw, won 6 titles, everything. But this younger generation is now ready to go, our guy, LeBron James, is the best player of all time. I've seen him since I was a little boy. And I think that me, from the older generation, corporate heir, who still wears Jordans every day, she loves them, we're all ready to have that conversation, Chael. Maybe he isn't past Michael, but at least we're talking about it. Are we at a point now where maybe Valentina isn't past Amanda, but we're ready to talk about the fact that this lady has now won 11 UFC title fights? She has beaten everybody, and she just beat another all-time great. Maybe she is the greatest female fighter of all time.
And when you talk about greatest also, there is a difference in fighter versus career, but it's a fine line. And if you are talking career, I think for sure it's her. But I also see a strength in longevity. I personally see a strength in being able to have more experiences over a longer period of time, maybe even slip a non-perfect record in to be able to do it for a decade more than your competition. I think that's special. I think that the bullet skills, Daniel, what most impressed me, and by the way, there's another side to this coin. I was bored to pieces watching this. I greatly blame this position. But I do want to back up to something. To understand how good somebody is, you got to know how great the opponent is. And if you will just remember what Weili was able to do to Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez is the most accomplished female wrestler in mixed martial arts, not just in the weight class. She is a world medal. She got out-wrestled, Tatiana did, for 5 straight rounds by Weili. Tatiana never found her double leg, never found her way on top. That is how great Weili looked. And the bullet went out and did that to her. Which, by the way, Daniel, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 4 years ago.
Didn't have that.
We're talking about the bullet. We're talking about this vicious and wonderful striker, the Jose Aldo for the women's division. Her last 2 fights, all the bullet's done is takedowns and control. I mean, in some ways, her game is growing. In some ways, her curiosity and what she's doing in the practice room. In some ways, even if the excitement and the oohs and the ahs are getting less, the impressiveness and the ability for her to change while already champion is flat amazing.
Yeah, she is. And I asked her in an interview, I said, how do you get up every morning and you still do it? Like, you are still as motivated. She goes, because I'm not a martial artist. She goes, I am martial arts. This is me. This ain't my job. This is what I do. And she's like 37, 36, 37 years old now. She's not a young girl anymore like she was when she started. And she's only becoming more dominant. You know, I always wonder when I watch 2 athletes compete, who does this say more about, Weili or Valentina? But I left that fight, Chael, feeling feeling more convinced that, especially on the female side, weight classes matter. Because my goodness, Valentina just bullied her around. We watched a smaller guy in Islam go up and beat the champion. Whereas on the same night of fight before, the smaller athlete, Weili, visibly smaller, had nothing for Valentina. When she would try to enter, she would get hit on the way in. When she got close, Valentina would just literally bear hug her and throw her down. It was like getting the JJ. You remember the JV wrestler when you were in high school? It didn't work in college because even the backups were pretty good. Sure. But the JV dude in high school, where if you can get your hands locked around his body, you could just squeeze him down. Valentina did that over and over to one of the greatest female fighters of all time. It said a lot about Valentina and her skill set and how much it's evolved. But what it said to me the most is on the female side, weight classes really do matter, because even Valentina Chael, that's my last point, was successful at 135, but she got beat. She has almost been undisputed, dominant, undefeatable person ever in the world history of fighting since 125 was created.
Yeah, no, and that praise is, I don't think I could put words together that are stronger than what you just said, and perhaps the way you said it still isn't strong enough. She is that great. I fully see it the same way. That was a co-main event performance, and coming out of that and some of the names that she called out, she's planning to return to the co-main event. Daniel, when I worked with you last week on our Most Proud show, but you had made a point, and I stored it away, and it sure turned out to be true, and you said, hey, Madison Square Garden, you were talking to the audience. It doesn't matter if you boo. It doesn't matter if the bullet gets you somewhere that you are not pleased with watching. She will stay there as long as it means victory. And I do respect that about her. I appreciate it, but I never noticed it until you called it out. So for that, I do owe you a thank you.
You know, for the champion, yeah, Chael, it's going to be hard for her to headline, because of the way the fights have been going. They've been dominant, but they have not been as fun as some of the ones prior. So you're right. She's probably going to be in another co-main event, especially if she's fighting Natalia Silva. And some of those fighters that aren't necessarily as known, you don't really put them out to main event those big cards that are going to be coming. But Weili now finds herself in a very odd situation, right? She's clearly too small for 125. She had asked for that fight with Valentina since 2019. She finally got it, and sometimes you ask for something that you don't really want, or when you get it, you're like, yo, can I give it back? Like, yo, Weili's probably like, I asked for this, but can I give it back? But if she goes back to 115, Chael, she's a minus 450 favorite to beat the new champion, Mackenzie Dern. Do you think that's what we see next for Magnum?
I don't think so. Now, one thing we have to understand, and I think perhaps I got to double cross my own talk, but the level of star that she is in China, this is massive. So, we may not quite appreciate that over here. But with that in mind, I just think Mackenzie Dern is the one that says no to the fight. I think Mackenzie Dern says, hey, why should I have to lose to a loser? Why do I got to lose to somebody that lost their last 5 rounds? I understand that's as a way of avoiding the fight. I'm just suggesting for you, why should Mackenzie, as the new champion, have to defend against somebody who agreed to leave the division, oh, by the way, and struck out? I think that if Mackenzie brings that forward, we'll probably look in a different direction than Weili. But if we let a couple of months go by, this is all going to die over. It's going to be cool in the gang. We're not discussing any way we want to do it, a main event fight. We just discuss 2 non-main event fights, and ultimately those get settled on a little easier scale.
Yeah, I don't know that you could tell Zhang Weili no. And Chael, you know what's good about this? And I love that. I don't love that she lost, but I love that it allows us to get the conversation of, what if Ilya hadn't won and he gave up his belt? What if Islam hadn't won and he gave up his belt? I asked you on Thursday, do we believe that there are some safeguards in there for these champions that are being told, you can go chase the second belt, but you have to give up the first belt? So is that already written in there somewhere that Zhang Weili goes back down? She's the first one, because it's only fair. I know Mackenzie could go, why should I fight her? She got beat last time. It's only fair that if she wants to fight back at 115, where she's been the long-reigning champion and dominant, she gets the opportunity to fight back at 115. You don't have to like it, man. Hey, sometimes they used to tell me, my mom would be like, go eat your peas. And I'm like, no, they're gross and they're expired. She said, you ain't got to love it, but you're going to have to eat it and you're going to have to like it. I mean, it just is what it is. You ain't got to love it, but you're going to have to learn to like it and fight Zhang Weili if that's what happens. Hey, Michael Morales put it on Sean Brady. This dude is big, strong, aggressive. He just beat the number 2 dude in the world, and he wiped him out completely in a fight where most thought it was a nightmare of a style. How impressed were you by Morales?
Megan O'Leary did something called fighter meetings, and she sat in there with Morales and she sat in there with Brady, and she said they were both genuinely annoyed with the other one because they both had such a high confidence that this guy's got nothing to offer me. The really great fights are when both guys truly believe that they can go out and win. I think that Brady, look, he's going to have to take some bumps for freezing up in the moment. But partner, that's really not what happened. Brady went out there and moved pretty well. Morales timed him perfectly. Morales found it. He's got big power. He's a big guy. And if there's anybody that can be expecting a Christmas card from the Usman household, I really think that it's Morales. Now, somebody said, somebody on very good authority saw Dana White mouth. He mouthed to Morales, you're next.
Yep.
If that happened, Morales is going to be next. Dana will not take that back, but I just got to leave it for now at rumor. I saw Dana after it. I didn't think that's what his mouth said, but my point is, that's what a big deal this was. That's what a big deal beating Brady is. That's what a big deal representing a country. That's what a big deal being 19-0. That's what a big deal beating 9 men straight in the octagon. You were in the very short list for world title fight.
Some of these records at welterweight are insane. Shavkat's 19-0. Brady just lost for the second time in his career, I believe. This kid, Morales, is 19-0. Ian Gary's like 18-1. The records that these young guys have at welterweight are absolutely insane. And for Michael Morales to do what he did in that situation, biggest stage of his career, the Ecuadorian soccer team is playing in New York this week, so he's staying there. A lot of support in the building for him on Saturday. Their national team on Tuesday. He went out there and he delivered and showed. Bro, I thought that when he hit Gilbert Burns in the last fight, I was like, man, it don't look like he caught him clean. I just don't know that with the power he has to catch you clean. He hits that hard, and obviously he's on the short list of guys to fight for the UFC title. But right before him, this dude might be the coolest dude in MMA. This man comes out to Rick Ross. He smokes cigarettes, and my son goes, Dad, he lifted Leon off of his feet. Bro, when he hit Leon Edwards, Leon's feet came off the ground, and he's doing this to a world champion. I'm talking about Carlos Prates. This dude is the real deal. I forget, Chael, when he comes out to Rick Ross. So every time I go, oh, and John's like, yep, every time. I was like, this dude he's the real deal. And he seems to be gathering a lot of steam in terms of the way the public is now perceiving Carlos Prates. That was a big deal for him, though.
We want to talk about who's next, and I don't think it's going to be Prates, but let me play a game with you real fast right off the top of your head. History says if you beat a world champion, you fight for a world championship. Now, while you're thinking of an example where that's not true, let me sweeten the pot a little bit more. History says if you finish a world champion, you fight for a world championship, and that one, my friend, I believe is a bulletproof stat. I don't think anyone has ever finished a former world champion and then not gotten the opportunity themselves. That speaks more to our division than it does directly to Prates. I think that Prates is already kind of looking in some different directions. I'm just sharing that welterweight right now is so healthy, and it ties in perfectly for Islam. For parity and new matches is really what we want as fans for Islam. And the mere fact that 170's got 4 or 5 top contenders with Islam now at the helm, I just think Islam's spot, he's in a very healthy moment of his career.
This boy, Carlos Prates, comes out to the song Purple Lamborghini by Rick Ross. Hey, you know the first time I heard that? I heard that, Chael, whenever the Suicide Squad movie was about to come out, and the Joker would drive the purple Lamborghini. And he said, forgive me for my sins, I have just begun. And Prates goes out there and does what he does. Prates is the man, dude. And then this dude gonna light a cigarette. And as Islam was walking to the cage, Prates is in the back, like shaking his hand, like, let's go, boys. Like, what is up with Prates? I told Prates Saturday, I said, hey, man, tell me where your after party is so that I know I'm at least a mile away so I don't get caught in all that you guys are going to be doing. Because
there's nowhere not to be, right?
I know where not to be in New York City. Hey, Beneil Dariush is a very tough man. Did not seem that way on Saturday. Benoit St put him out in 16 seconds, bro. He's now won 3 in a row since getting beat by Renato Moicano and switching his team. But Benoit St Denis, who, sometimes they got guys that call out girls. Chael, when you met Miss Brittany, you knew she was out of your league. You knew, but you said, you know what? I'm shooting my shot. I'm going to try. I'm just going to try. And it worked out. Benoit St Denis is a guy that doesn't recognize that the pretty girl at the prom doesn't want to date him. He called out Dustin Poirier. We laughed at him. He got the fight. He goes, and I want the BMF title against Max Halloway. And guess what? I think it would be unbelievably fun to watch Benoit St Denis fight Max Halloway.
I do too. And I don't know if that's the direction we're going, but I will tell you the last time that Benoit St Denis looked good at Madison Square Garden, they were trying to roll the carpet out for him. They even call in the Diamond, and they even send Benoit to the Diamond's backyard out there in Miami. And so this isn't the first time that people have seen the greatness of St. Denis and been willing to reward it. I think that big push is coming. I think he needs to play it just right. I think maybe he froze up a little bit against Dustin. He needs to learn from that. But for big moments, for St. Denis, I think that's a wonderful thing. Benny DeRouche did not seem like himself to me on Saturday. I'll just tell you that when he left the cage. That song was different, the look in his eyes. I turned to Anthony Smith. I said, hey, something's going on. I said, Anthony, he's not warm. I said, Anthony, he's going to use this first round to get warmed up, and he's not going to be here for the second, if I'm right. And sure enough, he went out there. It kind of looked like he was just warming up. And I'll just offer for you, he missed weight. Very unlike Benny. I think that Benny might real privately be dealing with something. He never speaks out. He'll never offer an excuse. But if he does see this and there is something going on, I'd like him to know he's not alone, and I wish him well.
Or maybe it honestly feels like it's kind of getting towards the end when the guy starts getting cracked with shots that maybe before would not have put him down in the way that one did. But Chael, I know I'm kind of hitting you with the rapid fires here because I want to get these in before we get done with the show. Boy, you want to talk about an American prospect? Give it up for the boy, Bo Nickal, with the head kick knockout. I was celebrating. Joe, I was actually celebrating, and I don't have nothing against Adolfo Vieira, but I was just happy for Bo. Bo fought with intent. Bo fought like he wanted to hurt Vieira in the fight on Saturday. He hit him with some good punches, and then that head kick puts him down completely, gets on the octagon side, and shows the fans exactly what he feels about him and gives them the middle. He was Stone Cold Steve Austin. How about Bo Nickal?
I went to BYU, Daniel. I signed my letter of intent to wrestle for Brigham Young University. I have not been back to campus since 1995, and I have not heard the words mother frickers since I left that campus. Bo didn't know what to do. Partner, he had the birds going at one point. Now, but if you watch carefully, he switched them. He switched them to the middle, and then he went back to it again. He didn't know. He was telling the fans, you decide if I'm a heel or I'm a face. Am I a good guy, bad guy? You like me, you hate me. Hey, Bo, how about you decide? Sometimes you're pointing, sometimes you're flipping. I'm open for it all. Sometimes he's wrestling, sometimes he's striking. I love the Bo Nickal experiment. I'm still on the train. I never came off it. I still think that's the hardest matchup for our current champion. But what does he do now? Where does he go from now? I'm going to throw one name at you, and I might be getting ahead of myself, but I would really like to see Bo versus Dricus du Plessis.
Oh, already? Way up there?
I'm already there.
Jesus Christ, bro. That's,
I'm ahead of myself, but if we're going to do it on the White House lawn, we're going to have to bring in the right guy, and the right guy is always the former champion.
I mean, and the way that, the way he mat return. Remember when he got behind Vieira and he went to that mat return? He put him in the air so fast, you knew. That's the difference there, Chael. You know how some guys are like moseying around the person behind them, trying to get a bite to lift them? Nope, Bo went up, get your butt back down to the mat. You're too small. Dude, he looked amazing on Saturday, and I was very proud of Bo Nickal. I sat with Bo before, and he recognizes now that the boos are much easier to get than the cheers. So I believe that he's going to steer more into that as we go forward. Chael, I know you see my hammer here. I'm in the middle of a construction zone. I told you before, I just started I got a new studio I built. Oh, you want to see it? Oh, can I show it? Hold on.
I do.
Let me show it. So here, Chael, I started building my new studio. I'll show it for the first time. And I got my screen.
All right.
Oh,
yeah. That'll take a lot of hammer and nails to get that up.
It's still a construction zone right now. It's still a construction zone, so that's why I got the hammer. Hey, and let's hammer down the point that Islam Makhachev is number 1 pound for pound again after what he did last weekend. Unbelievable. For Chael Sonnen, I'm Daniel Cormier. Guys, we will not have a show on Thursday. We'll catch you on next Monday. For the bad guy, I'm the good guy. Peace.